The spit hit my face at exactly 8:47 a.m. on a Tuesday morning in the company parking lot. I felt the warm wetness slide down my cheek as my mother stood 3 feet away, her face twisted with rage, while my sister Tiffany held up her phone, recording every second of my humiliation. My boss David Chen stood frozen with his coffee cup halfway to his lips, his mouth open in shock. That was the moment everything changed. That was the moment I realized the people who were supposed to love me most in this world had just committed an act so vile, so public, so unforgivable that there was no going back. But before I tell you what happened next, if you appreciate stories about finding strength in your darkest moments, please hit that like button, subscribe to this channel, and leave a comment below, telling me about a time you had to stand up for yourself. Your support means everything, and I read every single comment. Now, let me take you back to where this nightmare really began. 6 months earlier, I was a different person. I was Riley Hayes, 32 years old, and single mother to my 7-year-old son Leo. And I had just accepted a position as project manager at Innovate Solutions, a mid-sized tech company in downtown Seattle. It should have been the proudest moment of my life. Instead, I made the mistake of telling my family about it over Sunday dinner at my mother's house. My mother, Brenda, had always been difficult. That is what I told myself for years, clinging to that word, difficult, as if it somehow made her behavior acceptable. The truth was much darker, but I was not ready to see it yet. She had raised me and my older sister Tiffany alone after our father left when I was 5, and she never let me forget the sacrifices she claimed to have made. Every achievement of mine was met with criticism. Every failure was proof of my inadequacy. Tiffany was the golden child, always had been. She was beautiful in that effortless way that made strangers turn their heads. She had tried her hand at modeling, acting, influencing, and a dozen other creative pursuits, none of which lasted more than a few months. But in my mother's eyes, Tiffany could do no wrong. She was creative. She was talented. She just needed the right opportunity, the right break, the right support, and I was supposed to provide that support. When I announced my new job that Sunday evening, carefully placing my fork down on the plate of pot roast that had already turned cold in my stomach from anxiety, my mother's face did not light up with pride. Instead, her eyes narrowed. "You got a job at a tech company," she said slowly. "What do you know about technology?" "It is a project management position." "Mom, I have been working my way up for years. This is a huge opportunity for me and Leo." Tiffany looked up from her phone, her perfectly manicured nails still tapping away at the screen. "That sounds boring," she said, without even making eye contact. "Do they hire creative directors?" "I have been looking for something in the corporate world, something with benefits." My mother's expression shifted immediately. "That is a wonderful idea," she said, reaching over to squeeze Tiffany's hand. "Riley, you should put in a good word for your sister. It is the least you can do after everything we have done for you." My stomach twisted. I had heard these words in various forms my entire life. "After everything we have done for you," as if love and support were transactions to be repaid with interest. As if being my mother was a favor she had granted me rather than a role she had chosen. "I do not think they are hiring right now," I said carefully. "And Tiffany does not have experience in that field." "Experience." My mother's voice rose sharply. "Your sister has more natural talent in her little finger than you will ever have. You just do not want to help her. You have always been selfish." "Riley. Always." I felt the familiar burn of tears behind my eyes but forced them back. I was 32 years old, a grown woman with a child of my own, and I was still desperate for my mother's approval, still hoping that one day she would look at me with pride instead of disappointment. The dinner ended badly, as they always did when I failed to comply with my mother's demands. I drove home to my small apartment, picked up Leo from my neighbor who had been watching him, and held him tight as he told me about his day at school. His innocence, his pure love, was the only thing that kept me going during those dark months. Starting at Innovate Solutions felt like stepping into a different world. David Chen, my direct supervisor, was everything my mother was not. He was patient, encouraging, and genuinely interested in helping me succeed. On my first day, he spent 3 hours walking me through the company culture, introducing me to the team, and making sure I had everything I needed. "You are going to do great here," Riley, he told me. As we wrapped up that first day, I can see the potential in you. Do not be afraid to speak up and share your ideas. I almost cried right there in his office. When was the last time someone had spoken to me with such genuine kindness and respect? But my family would not let me move forward. Within a week of starting my new job, my mother began calling me daily. She needed money for groceries. Tiffany needed help with her rent. There was always something. I found myself working 50-hour weeks and then spending my weekends driving across town to help my mother with tasks she was perfectly capable of handling herself. Riley, the garage door is making a noise. You need to come look at it. Riley, I need you to take me to the doctor. Tiffany is busy. Riley, can you watch your sister's cat for 2 weeks while she goes to Miami with her boyfriend? Every request was framed as urgent, as essential, as something only I could do. And like the dutiful daughter I had been trained to be, I complied. I rearranged my schedule. I said yes when I should have said no. I sacrificed time with Leo because my mother made me feel guilty for daring to prioritize my own child over her demands. The breaking point should have come sooner, but I was still caught in that web of obligation and guilt. I was still believing that if I just did enough, gave enough, sacrificed enough, my mother would finally see my worth. Then came the promotion. 3 months into my position at Innovate Solutions, David called me into his office. Riley, he said with a smile, the executive team has been incredibly impressed with your work. We would like to offer you a promotion to Senior Project Manager. It comes with a significant raise and the opportunity to lead some of our most important initiatives. I could barely breathe. A promotion already. Most people had to wait years for advancement like this. You have earned it, David continued. You have brought a level of organization and strategic thinking to this department that we have been missing. We see leadership potential in you, and we want to invest in your growth. I accepted immediately, my hands shaking as I signed the paperwork. This was it. This was my chance to build real financial security for Leo and myself. This was proof that I was capable, that I had value beyond being my family's emotional and financial support system. I should have known better than to tell them. That Sunday, I arrived at my mother's house with Leo, who immediately ran off to play in the backyard. I had rehearsed what I would say a dozen times during the drive over. I would be calm, confident, and clear. I would not let them diminish this achievement. Mom, Tiffany, I have some good news. I began as we sat in the living room. I got promoted at work. I am now a senior project manager. The silence that followed was deafening. My mother's face went through several expressions. Disgust, anger, disbelief. Before settling on cold fury. A promotion, she said. After 3 months, what did you do to get that? Riley, the implication hit me like a slap. I worked hard, I said, my voice tight. I proved myself. Tiffany laughed. A sharp, bitter sound. Meanwhile, I cannot even get an interview anywhere. This is so unfair. My mother stood up, her finger pointing at me accusingly. You know what you need to do. Riley, you need to get Tiffany a job at your company. A good position, not some entry-level garbage. You owe us that much. I do not owe you anything, I said quietly. The words slipped out before I could stop them. The room erupted. My mother screamed about ungrateful children, about all the sacrifices she had made, about how I was abandoning my family now that I had a little success. Tiffany joined in, calling me selfish, jealous, pathetic. I grabbed Leo and left, my son's confused questions breaking my heart as we drove home. That should have been the end of it. I should have cut them off right then. But the guilt was still there, heavy and suffocating. So when my mother called the next day, crying and apologizing, saying she was just stressed and worried about Tiffany's future, I accepted it. I told myself that family was complicated, that I needed to be patient, that things would get better. They did not get better. They got worse. My mother began showing up at my apartment, unannounced, always with some emergency that required my immediate attention or money. Tiffany started posting cryptic messages on social media about ungrateful siblings and family betrayal. My phone buzzed constantly with demands disguised as requests. Riley, Tiffany needs $2,000 for a security deposit on a new apartment. Riley, I need you to co-sign a car loan for your sister. Riley, you need to convince your boss to interview Tiffany. She has been so depressed lately. I gave them money I could not afford to give. I made calls I should not have made. I let their chaos bleed into every aspect of my life. David started to notice that I seemed distracted, stressed. My work performance, while still strong, was not at the level it had been before the promotion. One evening, as I was leaving the office late, David stopped me in the hallway. Riley, can we talk for a minute? He asked gently. I have noticed you have seemed stressed lately. Is everything okay? I wanted to tell him everything. I wanted to unburden myself to this kind man who actually seemed to care about my well-being. But I was too ashamed, too embarrassed to admit that I was a grown woman who could not stand up to her own mother. Just family stuff, I said with a forced smile. Nothing I cannot handle. He looked at me for a long moment, concern clear in his eyes. My door is always open if you need to talk, he said. And remember, we have employee assistance programs if you need support. I nodded and hurried out before the tears could fall. The situation reached a critical point 2 weeks before that terrible Tuesday morning. My mother called me on a Saturday night, her voice shrill with anger. She had found out that Innovate Solutions was hiring for a creative director position. She demanded that I not only recommend Tiffany but ensure she got the job. You have connections now, she hissed into the phone. Use them. Or are you really so spiteful that you would deny your own sister an opportunity? Mom, Tiffany does not have the qualifications for that role. I tried to explain. It requires 5 years of experience in tech, a portfolio of successful campaigns, and leadership skills. So, what you are saying is you think your sister is incompetent. That is not what I am saying at all. I am saying she does not meet the job requirements. Then you need to talk to your boss and make an exception. That is what family does. Riley, they help each other. I cannot do that. Mom, it would be inappropriate and could jeopardize my own position. The line went silent for a moment, and then my mother's voice came back, cold and calculated. Then I guess I need to help Tiffany myself. Do not bother calling me anymore. You have made your choice. She hung up. I sat in my darkened living room, Leo asleep down the hall, and felt something shift inside me. For the first time, I felt more angry than guilty, more tired than afraid. But I still was not ready to take action. Not yet. That changed on Tuesday morning. I had arrived at work early, energized by a weekend spent entirely with Leo without any family drama. I had turned off my phone, ignored the dozens of missed calls and texts from my mother and sister, and focused on being present with my son. We had gone to the park, made pancakes together, watched movies. It had been peaceful. It had been what life could be like without their toxicity. As I pulled into the parking lot of Innovate Solutions at 8:45 a.m., I noticed a silver SUV parked sideways across 2 spots near the entrance. Unusual, but I did not think much of it until I got closer and saw my mother step out of the driver's side. My heart sank. What was she doing here? Then Tiffany emerged from the passenger side, dressed in a designer outfit that I knew I had partially funded with the emergency money I had given her last month. She had her phone out, already recording. Mom, what are you doing here? I asked, trying to keep my voice calm as I walked toward them. My mother's face was twisted with rage. What am I doing here? She practically shouted. I am here to talk to your boss about what kind of person he has working for him. I am here to tell him that he promoted a selfish, ungrateful, worthless piece of trash who stabs her own family in the back. People were starting to arrive for work, parking their cars and walking past us. I felt my face burn with humiliation. Mom, please, I said quietly. This is my workplace. We can talk about this somewhere else. You are an embarrassment. She spat. A disgrace. Your sister has been crying for weeks because she cannot find work, and you could help her with one phone call. But you are too selfish. You have always been selfish. Even as a child, I should have known you would turn out like this. Tiffany chimed in, her voice dripping with fake sadness. I cannot believe my own sister hates me this much. All I wanted was a chance. But she could not even do that for me. Some family we are. I saw David Chen walking across the parking lot toward the building entrance, his usual coffee cup in hand. He noticed the commotion and started walking toward us, his expression concerned. "Everything okay here?" "Riley," he called out. That was when my mother made her move. She marched right up to David, getting in his personal space in a way that made him step back uncomfortably. "Are you Riley's boss?" she demanded. "I am David Chen, Director of Operations," he said calmly. "Can I help you? You need to know what kind of person you promoted," my mother said loudly, drawing even more attention from other employees arriving for work. "This woman right here." She pointed at me viciously. "She is trash. She is a thief who stole opportunities from her own sister. She is a liar and a manipulator, and you do not even know it." "Ma'am," David said firmly, "this is inappropriate. I am going to have to ask you to leave the premises." "Inappropriate." My mother's voice reached a fever pitch. "I will show you inappropriate." Then she turned, looked directly at me, and spat in my face. Time seemed to stop. The wetness of her saliva slid down my cheek. I could hear Tiffany laughing. I could see her phone still recording. I could see the horror on David's face, the shock on the faces of my coworkers who had witnessed the whole thing. And something inside me broke. Not broke like shattered, but broke like a dam, giving way, releasing years of pent-up anger and pain and realization. This was not normal. This was not what family did. This was abuse, pure and simple. And I had allowed it to continue for 32 years. I slowly wiped the spit from my face with the back of my hand, never breaking eye contact with my mother. My voice, when I finally spoke, was eerily calm. "You have gone too far," I said quietly. "This ends now." David immediately took control of the situation. He pulled out his phone and called building security, then gently guided me toward the entrance. "Security is on their way," he said to my mother and sister. "You need to leave immediately, or you will be arrested for trespassing and assault." My mother looked shocked that there were actual consequences to her actions. She started to backpedal, claiming she was just upset that I had driven her to this, that she was the real victim here. I did not stay to hear it. I walked into the building with David, my legs somehow carrying me, even though I felt numb. He took me directly to the HR office, where the Director of Human Resources, a woman named Patricia Martinez, was already waiting, having been alerted by David. "Riley," Patricia said gently, guiding me to a chair. "We need to document everything that just happened. Are you okay to talk about it?" I nodded, surprised at how steady my voice was as I recounted, not just this morning's incident, but months of harassment, financière exploitation, and emotional abuse. David corroborated everything he had witnessed, and Patricia took careful notes. "This constitutes assault and harassment," Patricia said when I finished. "We take the safety of our employees very seriously. We are going to activate our employee protection protocol, which includes involving law enforcement if you wish to press charges. And we can connect you with legal resources." "I want to press charges," I said without hesitation. "And I want a restraining order." The next few hours were a blur. The police arrived and took statements. David stayed with me the entire time, bringing me water and tissues even though I had not cried. I felt strangely calm, as if I had finally woken up from a long nightmare. By the end of the day, I had filed a police report for assault. I had been connected with a lawyer who specialized in family law and restraining orders, and I had received a personal call from the CEO of Innovate Solutions, a man named Robert Zhang, who expressed his full support. "Riley," Mr. Zhang said over the phone, "no one should have to experience what you went through today. Please know that this company stands behind you completely. We will provide whatever resources you need, including paid leave if necessary while you deal with this situation. And we have excellent legal counsel available if you need additional support." "Thank you," I managed to say, my voice finally cracking with emotion. "That means more than you know." When I picked up Leo from school that afternoon, I held him tight. "My mom and aunt are not allowed to come near us anymore," I told him gently. "They did something very bad, and I am making sure we are safe." "Are they going to hurt us?" "Mom," he asked, his little face full of worry. "No, baby," I said firmly. "I will never let anyone hurt us. I promise you that." The next 72 hours moved with shocking speed. Melavier, a sharp woman named Jennifer Park, moved quickly to file for an emergency restraining order. The evidence was overwhelming. The assault in a public place, months of documented harassment via text messages and voicemails that I had never deleted. The video that Tiffany had stupidly posted to her social media before thinking better of it and taking it down, though not before several people had downloaded it. On Friday morning, just 3 days after the parking lot incident, a judge granted a temporary restraining order. My mother and Tiffany were legally prohibited from coming within 500 feet of me. My home, Leo's school, and my workplace. The police served the papers personally. Showing up at my mother's house with the official documents, my phone exploded with messages. My mother called me every name in the book. Texted that I was destroying the family, that I would regret this, that I was going to hell. Tiffany sent crying selfies, claiming I was ruining her life, that she was the real victim in all of this. I blocked every number, every social media account, every avenue they had to contact me. My lawyer had advised me that any violation of the restraining order would only strengthen our case when we went before the judge for the permanent order hearing in 2 weeks. The silence that followed was both terrifying and liberating. For the first time in my adult life, I went entire days without my mother's criticism ringing in my ears. Without Tiffany's passive-aggressive posts making me feel guilty. Without the constant demands for money, time, and emotional labor. Work became my sanctuary. David checked in with me daily, not hovering but making sure I knew support was available. My coworkers, the ones who had witnessed that terrible morning, were incredibly kind. Sarah, another project manager who had become a friend, started bringing me coffee every morning and staying late to have dinner with Leo and me. "You do not have to go through this alone," she told me one evening as we ate takeout Chinese food while Leo played with his toys. "What your family did was horrible, but look at the family you are building here. We have got your back." I started therapy the following week. My therapist, Dr. Amanda Lewis, helped me understand that I had been conditioned from childhood to accept abuse as love, to believe that my worth was tied to my usefulness to others, to think that setting boundaries made me selfish. "You were trained to be a victim," she said gently during our second session. "Your mother needed someone to control, someone to blame. For her own failures and disappointments, you were the scapegoat, and your sister was the golden child. It is a classic family dynamic, and it is deeply damaging. But I am an adult," I protested. "I should have seen it sooner. I should have stood up for myself years ago." "Abuse warps your perception. Riley, you are surviving. Now you are ready to thrive. But that takes time and work. Be patient with yourself." The work was hard. Some days I would be overcome with guilt, convinced that I had overreacted, that I should call my mother and apologize. Other days I was furious, angry at myself for allowing the abuse to continue for so long, angry at them for treating me that way, angry at the world for not protecting that little girl I had been. But slowly, day by day, I started to feel lighter, stronger. I started to remember who I was before I learned to make myself small to accommodate my family's dysfunction. Then Tiffany made her move. 2 weeks after the restraining order was issued, HR forwarded me an email. Tiffany had applied for a position at Innovate Solutions. Not the creative director role she had wanted, but an entry-level creative assistant position. Her application was surprisingly professional, probably written by someone else, and made no mention of her relationship to me. But she had also sent a personal message to David Chen's professional email, full of flattery and subtle hints about family connections. "I know Riley works there, and I am so proud of my little sister's success. I am sure she has told you all about me. I am hoping we can work together and make the Hayes family name shine at your company." David forwarded it to me with a simple message. "What would you like me to do with this?" I stared at the email for a long time. Part of me wanted to scream, to rage at the audacity of Tiffany, thinking she could manipulate her way into my safe space. But then I felt something else. A cold, calculating clarity. "Forward it to HR." I typed back. "Let them handle her application through the normal process. Make sure everything is documented." Patricia from HR called me an hour later. "Riley, I want you to know that this application will be reviewed by a panel that includes myself, someone from the creative department, and David. You will not be part of the review process." and we will make our decision based solely on qualifications and fit together and eyes. I appreciate that, I said. But I think you should know that Tiffany has been posting things on social media about me. Negative things. I can send you screenshots. Please do, Patricia said, her voice hard. That kind of behavior reflects poorly on a candidate's judgment and professionalism. Meanwhile, Tiffany had ramped up her social media campaign. She posted long, emotional rants about ungrateful siblings. She shared quotes about family betrayal. She even posted a tearful video claiming that I had used my connections to blacklist her from jobs, that I was systematically destroying her life because I was jealous of her beauty and talent. The irony would have been funny if it were not so disturbing. She was literally creating evidence against herself while thinking she was garnering sympathy. My lawyer Jennifer was delighted. "This is perfect," she said when I showed her the posts. "She is violating the spirit of the restraining order by targeting you publicly, and she is demonstrating a pattern of harassment. This will absolutely work in our favor at the permanent hearing." The permanent restraining order hearing was scheduled for a Monday morning in late October. I dressed carefully that day in a navy blue suit that Sarah had helped me pick out. Professional, confident, and strong. Leo stayed with Sarah's teenage daughter, a sweet girl who loved babysitting. My mother and Tiffany showed up to court dressed like they were attending a funeral, all in black, with tissues clutched dramatically in their hands. They had a lawyer, too, a bored-looking man who clearly had not prepared adequately for the case. The hearing lasted 3 hours. Jennifer presented a devastating case. The assault in the parking lot, corroborated by multiple witnesses, including my supervisor. Months of harassing text messages and voicemails. The social media posts that clearly targeted me despite the temporary restraining order. Tiffany's attempt to infiltrate my workplace. A statement from David Chen about the hostile encounter. Even a statement from Patricia at HR about the inappropriate job application and personal message. My mother's lawyer tried to paint me as an ungrateful daughter who was overreacting to normal family disagreements. He tried to claim that the parking lot incident was just a mother who was emotional about being rejected by her child, but then Jennifer called me to the stand. I told my story calmly and clearly. Not just about the parking lot, but about years of financial exploitation, about being made to feel worthless unless I was serving their needs. About the constant criticism and comparison to my sister, about the way they had tried to sabotage my career success because they could not stand to see me succeed. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s named Judge Rachel Morrison, listened intently. When I finished, she asked me one question. "Miss Hayes, what are you hoping to achieve with this restraining order?" "I want peace, Your Honor," I said simply. "I want to raise my son in an environment free from toxicity. I want to build a career without being sabotaged by people who claim to love me. I want to heal from years of abuse. I want them to have no legal right to come near me, my child, or my workplace ever again." Judge Morrison nodded and made some notes. Then she asked my mother if she had anything to say. My mother stood up, her lawyer trying to pull her back down, and launched into a tirade about what an ungrateful, selfish, horrible daughter I was. She called me names. She said I was a liar. She said that everything she had ever done was for my own good, and I was too stupid to see it. The judge let her go on for about 2 minutes before holding up a hand. "That is enough," she said coldly. "Ma'am, you are not helping your case," the judge ruled from the bench. She granted a permanent restraining order with very specific terms. My mother and Tiffany could not come within 500 feet of me. Leo, our home, Leo's school, my workplace, or any public event where they knew I would be present. They could not contact me directly or indirectly through third parties. They could not post about me on social media. They could not attempt to contact anyone in my professional network. Furthermore, Judge Morrison added, "I am ordering you, Ms. Brenda Hayes and Miss Tiffany Hayes, to pay Mrs. Riley Hayes the sum of $15,000 in damages for emotional distress, lost wages due to time taken for legal proceedings, and legal fees." My mother gasped. Tiffany started crying loudly. Their lawyer slumped in his chair. The judge was not done. "I am also recommending to the prosecutor's office that they pursue charges for assault based on the parking lot incident. Ms. Brenda Hayes, spitting on someone is assault, And doing so in a public place in front of witnesses suggests you need to learn that actions have consequences. As we left the courtroom, my mother tried to approach me, screaming about how I had ruined her life. Court security immediately intervened, reminding her that the restraining order was now active. Any violation would result in her arrest. Jennifer guided me out of the courthouse quickly. "You did it, Riley," she said with a smile. "You protected yourself and your son. You should be proud." I felt numb more than anything. Relieved. Yes, but also sad. I had just legally cut ties with my mother and sister. The family I had desperately wanted to love me had forced me to build legal walls to keep them out. But as the days passed, the numbness faded and something else took its place. Freedom. I started sleeping better. I stopped checking my phone anxiously every 5 minutes. I laughed more easily with Leo. I excelled at work without the constant weight of family drama pulling me down. 3 months after the hearing, David called me into his office again. "Riley," he said with a broad smile, "we would like to offer you another promotion. Senior Director of Project Operations. You would be overseeing 3 departments and leading some of our highest priority initiatives." I accepted on the spot, tears of joy streaming down my face. This is everything I have ever wanted. I told him, "Thank you for believing in me." "You believed in yourself," he replied. "We just gave you the space to show us what you are capable of." The promotion came with a significant salary increase. For the first time in my life, I was not just financially stable but truly comfortable. I moved Leo and myself into a beautiful 2-bedroom apartment in a safe neighborhood with good schools. I started saving for his college education. I bought myself things I needed without guilt. Meanwhile, my mother and Tiffany had gone silent. I heard through a distant cousin who reached out to check on me that they were furious about the restraining order and the financial judgment. They had tried to rally other family members against me. But most people had heard enough stories over the years to know the truth about their behavior. Some family members reached out to me with apologies. "Your aunt always knew your mother treated you terribly," one uncle told me. "We just did not know how to help. I am sorry we did not do more." I accepted their apologies but kept my distance. I was building a new life now, and I needed to be careful about who I let into it. 6 months after the restraining order was granted, Innovate Solutions held our annual Bring Your Child to Work Day. I brought Leo, who was thrilled to see where his mom spent her days. He ran around the office with other employees' kids, played with the 3D printers in the engineering lab, and ate lunch in the cafeteria like he owned the place. David introduced Leo to the team during our department meeting. "This is Leo Hayes," he announced, "son of our rock star, Senior Director Riley. Let us give him a round of applause for sharing his mom with us." Leo beamed as everyone clapped. After the meeting, he tugged on my sleeve. "Mom," he whispered, "everyone here is so nice to you. They really like you." "They do, sweetheart," I said, ruffling his hair. "And you know what, I really like them too." That afternoon, I stood at my office window overlooking the parking lot, the same parking lot where my mother had spat in my face, the same space that had become a turning point in my life. But now when I looked at it, I did not see that terrible morning. I saw possibility. I saw safety. I saw the boundary I had created and defended. A year after the restraining order, I had coffee with Sarah at a cafe near the office. She had become not just a coworker but a true friend. One of the first healthy relationships I had built as an adult. "How are you doing?" she asked, studying my face. "Like really doing." "I am okay," I said honestly. "Better than okay. Actually, some days are hard. I still have moments where I wonder if I did the right thing. If I should have tried harder to fix things with my family." Sarah reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Riley, you did not break your family. They were already broken. You just stopped letting them break you too." Her words stayed with me. I had spent so many years believing that if I just loved them enough, sacrificed enough, gave enough, things would get better. But the truth was that I could not fix people who refused to admit they were broken. My therapist, Dr. Lewis, helped me understand that healing is not linear. Some days I felt strong and confident. Other days I grieved the mother I wished I had, the sister I should have been able to trust, the family I had always dreamed of. But I also started to build a chosen family. Sarah and her family became like extended relatives to Leo and me. David and his wife invited us to dinner parties. I joined a support group for people recovering from family estrangement and found others who understood exactly what I had been through. Leo thrived in our new life. He was more confident, more relaxed, and more himself, without the constant tension of toxic family visits. He made friends easily, did well in school, and talked excitedly about becoming an engineer someday so he could work with his mom at her tech company. The restraining order was tested a few times. Once, my mother showed up at a coffee shop where she somehow knew I would be. I immediately called the police, and she was arrested for violation. She spent a night in jail, and the judge added another year to the restraining order as punishment. Tiffany tried to create fake social media accounts to message me, but I documented everything and reported her. Each violation only strengthened the legal protections around Leo and me. The financial judgment took longer to collect, but Jennifer was persistent. Eventually, my mother and Tiffany were forced to set up a payment plan. Every month, a check arrived for $300, a tangible reminder that their actions had consequences. I never cashed the checks. Instead, I put them in a savings account earmarked for Leo's future. My mother's money, earned through cruelty and manipulation for so many years, would now fund her grandson's education. The irony was not lost on me. 2 years after that terrible Tuesday morning, I was invited to speak on a panel at a women's leadership conference. The topic was overcoming obstacles in your career, and I debated whether to tell my story publicly. In the end, I did. I stood in front of 200 professional women and told them about family abuse, about the courage it takes to set boundaries, about the importance of building a support system, about how sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to walk away from people who refuse to respect you. The response was overwhelming. Women lined up afterward to share their own stories, to thank me for speaking up, to ask for advice. I realized that my experience, as painful as it had been, could help others. 3 years after the restraining order, I received a letter from my mother. It had been sent through Jennifer, Milavier, to ensure no violation of the order. In it, my mother claimed she had been in therapy and had realized she had been wrong. She apologized. Though the apology was filled with justifications and excuses, she asked if we could meet to talk. I read the letter 3 times, looking for genuine remorse, for true accountability. It was not there. The letter was more about her pain, her suffering, her loneliness than about what she had done to me. I wrote back, again through Jennifer. I thanked her for the letter but declined to meet. I explained that unless she could take full responsibility for her actions without justification, unless she could respect my boundaries completely, unless she could prove through sustained behavior change over a long period that she had truly changed, I could not risk letting her back into my life. I never heard from her again. Tiffany never even tried to reach out. I was not surprised, but I was okay. More than okay. I was thriving. At work, I continued to advance. 4 years after that parking lot incident, I was named Vice President of Operations. I led a team of 40 people. I made decisions that affected the direction of the company. I mentored young women who reminded me of my younger self. Women who needed someone to believe in them. Leo grew into a confident, kind teenager. He knew the basics of what had happened with my family. Age-appropriate information shared carefully over the years. He understood that sometimes people we love hurt us, and it is okay to protect yourself even from family. On the 5-year anniversary of the restraining order, I did something I had been thinking about for months. I wrote a blog post about my experience. I did not use real names or identifying details, but I told the story of a woman who had to legally separate from her abusive family to save herself. The post went viral. Thousands of people shared it, commented on it, sent me messages about their own experiences with family estrangement and abuse. I realized I was not alone. There were millions of people out there who had made similar difficult decisions, who carried the same guilt and grief and relief that I did. I started speaking more publicly about these issues. I did interviews. I wrote more articles. I became an advocate for people dealing with toxic family situations, emphasizing that choosing your own well-being over family obligation is not selfish. It is survival. Leo, now 15, told me He was proud of me. "Mom, you are helping so many people," he said one evening as we made dinner together. "You turned something terrible into something good." Standing in my kitchen. In the home I had built with my own hard work. With my healthy, happy son beside me. I felt a sense of peace I had never known in my mother's house. This was what safety felt like. This was what love looked like. Not sacrifice and submission, but respect and boundaries and mutual care. The parking lot at Innovate Solutions is still there. Of course, I park in it every day, but it does not haunt me anymore. Instead, it reminds me of my strength, of the moment I chose myself, a kind of the life I built from the ashes of that terrible morning. Revenge is not about hurting the people who hurt you. Revenge is building a life so strong, so full, so protected that they can never touch you again. It is succeeding, despite their efforts to keep you small. It is choosing happiness over their need for control. It is showing your children what healthy love looks like, so they never accept the counterfeit version you grew up with. My mother wanted me to be small, dependent, and forever in her debt. Instead, I became powerful, independent, and free. That is the best revenge of all. Some people might say I went too far. That family is family, and I should have forgiven them. But forgiveness does not require reconciliation. I have forgiven my mother and sister for my own peace of mind. But I will never give them another opportunity to hurt me or my son. That is not cruelty. That is wisdom. I look at my life now and barely recognize the frightened woman who stood in that parking lot with spit running down her face. That woman was the end of one story. I am the beginning of another, and this story has a much better ending. So let me ask you something. Have you ever had to choose between family loyalty and your own well-being? Have you ever had to build walls to protect yourself from the people who were supposed to protect you? Drop your story in the comments below. Let us support each other, because that is what real family does. If this story resonated with you, if you know someone who needs to hear that, it is okay to walk away from toxicity. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs this message. Sometimes the strongest thing we can do is say enough, and mean it. Remember, you do not owe anyone access to your peace. Not even family. Especially not family who refuses to earn it.